Should you invest in Bitcoin or is it too volatile? Who is Satoshi Nakamoto and what was he afraid of? What will the future of Bitcoin be after Trump's election? Jemson Chen hosts the Orange Pill Uncensored podcast and will answer these and other questions about Bitcoin and crypto while playing Azul with me. Meet Jemson Chen. Hello, Jemson. Nice to meet you.
Oh,
Thank you for accepting being
nice
on
to
this
meet
show.
Thank you.
To have a conversation with me, with our viewers, as well as to play the board game Azul. What I know from you is that you are a QA specialist, Bitcoin investor, enthusiast since 2019, born and raised in Singapore, living in Portugal, and you also have a podcast called the Orange Pill Podcast.
Just a bit of correction. Mostly is correct. Just one tiny correction. The podcast name is Orange Pill. You've forgotten the word uncensored.
Uncensored,
So
sorry. Orange Pill Uncensored.
yeah.
Okay. And we are already
Okay.
playing Azul as well, so I'm just taking my first move, and it's your
Yep.
turn now. Okay. So, Jemson, I can tell you up front that I'm not super specialist on the topic of crypto, blockchain. I know a few things. I'm connected a little bit, but probably I will learn things from you today.
Yeah, sure.
Since you have this podcast and you call it Orange Pill, for people that are not aware with the term, what is Orange Pill?
So for those who are not aware of the term orange pill, it's just basically this phrase is actually a play on the words red pill. You know, if for those of you who watch The Matrix, you know, where Morpheus was like, Neo, which pill do you want to take? You know?
The
Yeah. So
blue
the
one
red
or the
pill
red one, right?
symbolizes truth. Yeah. Red pill symbolizes truth. So that's why since the color of Bitcoin is orange, connect the dots, add two and two together, yeah, orange pill. Therefore, it refers to the process of, uh, basically introducing someone to Bitcoin, educating them about its properties and principles, and then the last part's a bit controversial. Try to convince them, to adopt Bitcoin into their lives.
Okay.
I tried successfully only so far on one or two of my friends. Yeah. With regards to orange pills. But yeah, I mean, at least I did try.
Mm-hmm.
I have some experience about the orange pill experience.
But those one or two those are the ones you can see, right? Because through your podcast, and who knows, maybe through the conversation today, you may convert other people to be orange pillars, right? So we are going to show them the orange
Yeah.
pill, and they can make a decision and join. Speaking of making a decision, Jamson, don't forget we are playing Azul, and it's your play, right? Don't forget that.
Yep, I know. Yeah.
When was your orange pill moment? When did you take the orange pill, Jamson?
For me, it was when I was doing online shopping back in 2017, 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And then I noticed that this online shopping platform, it offers Bitcoin as a payment method. Because at that time, it was around that time, 2017, 18, it was the bull market. 2 bull markets ago. And then like at first I was like thinking, what's this Bitcoin stuff? And then curiosity got the cat, and yeah. Many years later, that's how I dug myself deep down the rabbit hole and orange pill myself, to
Okay.
get
And how has
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin changed your perspective on money, economics, personal freedom? What changed exactly?
Bitcoin is just a path of my journey towards personal and financial freedom. I've always been a libertarian since I was 18, because during the year when I turned 18, lots of monumental world-shaking events happened. Occupy Wall Street, the Occupy Wall Street movement was one of them, and then that was 2011, 2012. I believe Ron Paul. It's like a very famous guy, a libertarian, politician in the US. He was actually running for president at that time. So yeah, it got me into this journey of being a libertarian. It's because of this, accidental discovery of Bitcoin. And then it just so happens that when I started to study more of Bitcoin, it kind of fused together. It kind of matches perfectly with my libertarian stance. So that's why I say, I came for the riches, but I stay for this freedom and libertarian ideals. So
Okay.
yeah,
Then what was the biggest challenge that you faced when transition to Bitcoin centric mindset?
the biggest challenge that I faced was, not to think about the fiat money mindset. So, for example, I used to spend quite a lot of money, even when I was in Singapore, because Singapore is it's not exactly like Portugal, where it's really, really affordable on some areas.
Mm-hmm.
Singapore's quite expensive. It's the
Mm-hmm.
Asian Switzerland. So yeah, I spent quite a lot of money, and I lacked the financial discipline to control my spending back then. But now my mindset has changed so much that I usually plan to save one third, invest one third of my money, and then I spend the rest on of my monthly salary. Yeah.
When you invested, when you say invest, you invest that third into crypto and Bitcoin.
Yes, majority would be in Bitcoin. In the past, I also used to dabble into or speculate into some of the altcoins, other altcoins, but now no, mostly it's Bitcoin.
Just Bitcoin.
Yeah.
On a daily basis, do you use Bitcoin to something else to make payments in Bitcoin? Do you just hold them and wait for the price to value to go up?
I mean, in real life, I did actually spend some of my Bitcoin.
But in terms of Bitcoiner mindset, I don't have a Bitcoin mindset. I'm a very classic money mindset, I would call it.
Like the traditional finance style mindset. Okay,
Probably,
I
I
got
don't
it.
know the proper term, but my mindset is earn, bank, normal bank, spend where you need to spend, and that's it. But for people that are listening and they clicked on this video because, hey, so maybe I want to do something with this money on the crypto side, what you're saying is that if
Mhm.
I earn $1,000, $2,000, I should put one third of that should invest one third of my salary into crypto. Is that a valid advice?
My profession is actually a engineer, QA analyst,
Mm-hmm.
software tester, not a
Okay.
financial advisor. So I am not qualified to give financial advice.
Okay.
Mm, But all I could say is everyone should understand his or her personal lifestyle habits, spending habits, and so on and so forth. And then from there formulate a way, okay, to plan your finances around those. For me, the one third, one third, one third rule,
Works.
it works
Yeah.
fine with me, but it may be different, for someone else.
Okay. Okay. That's valid. You're right. But I won't let you go so easy from my question because imagine then that I have those $1,000 could be a third of my salary or could be just $1,000 that I have here to spend. And I have a deposit from my bank. I have the opportunity to buy gold. I could um, invest in SP 500 or I could buy crypto
Ah,
or Bitcoin. I'm assuming that you will say, oh, from those options, the best or the more reliable will be Bitcoin. But at the same time, how do you respond to the argument that Bitcoin is too volatile to be a reliable store of value? Meaning, for the ones that are not aware, so today the Bitcoin price is above 100K, 140, if I'm not
yep.
mistaken. I haven't seen the numbers today. But some months ago was 70, 80. In 2 months could be higher, could be lower. So I cannot trust this, right? I cannot trust my money to be on a place where it just takes a tweet from a president for the price to go up or down. Is there any validity behind what I'm saying, Jemson? If not, please help us.
I admit there are some people who actually think of Bitcoin in such terms, in such a framework. But here's the thing. My counter argument is that they probably should try to study more about Bitcoin
Mm-hmm.
and to try not to think so much in terms of the Keynesian economics mindset, because you mentioned gold earlier, right? So
Yes.
it's a similar argument to gold. When gold first became popular with mainstream finance, remember this was just about 20 years ago when the first spot ETF for gold was being launched. And then back then, Wall Street was like, ooh, gold, is it the new store of value, apart from stocks? So the reason why Bitcoin and gold, back then, the talking head, the same talking heads, you have to realize the same media talking heads also said the same thing about gold. Oh, gold's price is too volatile, when the first the first spot gold ETFs were being launched, da, 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 da. But look where gold is right now. The price of gold is way, way, way lower than the price of Bitcoin, like
Hmm.
for 1 ounce of gold, the last I checked. But sorry, I digressed. Back to my point. The reason why Bitcoin and gold appear to be volatile is because, it's the long term value of all, I believe, all fiat money is volatile itself. You have to understand a bit of history, of money to realize that it's a historical fact that all, yes, all money that's not a good store of value will eventually become worthless.
Okay.
And I'm afraid the same fate will happen to the US dollar and the euro in the future. One of the only currencies that I could see surviving this very crazy world that we are living in right now probably is the Swiss franc. The only one I have confidence in saying, but the rest I
Hmm.
don't know. And the reason why I say Swiss franc is because at least some part of the Swiss franc is still backed by gold.
Okay. So for people that
Yeah,
are not into these terms, so when you mention fiat money, you are mentioning non-crypto, right? So the normal money like US dollars, Swiss franc,
yeah,
euros,
US
that's called
dollars,
fiat.
Swiss franc, euros.
That's called fiat. Okay. And your answer, just I'm trying to deconstruct here and make it simpler, maybe for other people, is that on the long term, Bitcoin retains value and even increase value, while those 1,000 euros or US dollars on the long term, they will devalue because of inflation. That's what you're saying, right? I guess there are lots of misunderstandings about Bitcoin and crypto, right? It's not easy for, especially old people, I guess, it would be that easy to understand and to get into. In your opinion, and through your podcast, through um, the orange peeling that you try to do, what are the biggest misconceptions people have about Bitcoin that you may demystify here on this conversation today?
There's so many of them. Where do I start?
How much time do you have,
Nah.
Jensen?
Uh, I'm just gonna name you the more common ones.
Okay.
The ones that you meant, the one that you mentioned earlier. Oh, it's too volatile to be a store of value. Yeah, that's the most one of the most common. The other one is, it's used for illicit activities,
Mhm.
which I will cover a little bit more about that probably later. If I have time to cover about Ross Ulbricht. It's a guy
Mhm.
who uh, was the founder and the developer of this platform called the Silk Road.
Okay. The one that got the pardon, right,
Yeah,
from Trump.
the one that got the pardon.
Yeah. Okay.
Just to give someone a bit of the context. Yeah.
Hmm. More misconceptions, Jensen. You
Oh, you
mentioned
want more?
being volatile, being used for illicit activities. What else?
Oh, it uses too much energy, water, and resources. Just to mine one Bitcoin, and uh, then this is
You just
very.
screw me here on Azul. Yeah, I need to put the. Thank you, Jameson. You just screw me. I had to go to negatives now. So I just got 8 negative points. Thank you, Jameson. But you were able to manage to fit everything. Yeah, this is starting very good for me. Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you with this negative thing because I was shocked
No, 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 no,
you were
no,
having
no, no. It's
something else.
Yes. Then this one, the next one that I'm about to mention is very weird. I don't know why people could think about it. It's like Bitcoin is a conspiracy created by the CIA or some other government agencies. I'm like, what? I work in IT, and I don't think that's the case.
Is that a real
You know?
misconception? It was created by CIA?
Yeah, it's like a lot of
Wow.
people, they always have this type of stupid conspiracy theories nonsense because they claim that, oh, because we don't know who the founder is,
Mm-hmm.
Satoshi Nakamoto,
Mm-hmm.
therefore he has to be working for a government agency. That's why he has to hide his privacy and everything. Da 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 da. I know, sounds stupid, but
Okay.
some people do believe in that.
Okay.
Very weird. I know.
Let me give you a misconception to see if it's that general from your side. So we heard a lot people saying that in crypto it's just Bitcoin. Everything else is just Bitcoin. What do you think?
For that, if it's like Bitcoin only, I would say I'm actually more of a Bitcoin only person myself.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Crypto, I do know that there are some use cases. Okay, but the thing is, they tend to actually function more like a digitized or tokenized version of stocks, equities, bonds, that type of thing. They have use cases. Don't get me wrong. Some of them they really, really have good use cases. Like I don't like to mention this, but Solana has quite a lot of use cases as at the moment. I mean, the reason why Trump is so pro crypto right now is because he recently launched
Bitcoin,
his
right?
own meme coin, his wife's meme coin on the Solana network. This is not financial advice. Just saying. I'm just using it as an example. Please don't invest in these ridiculous meme coins.
How
Huh?
credible, Jemson, is
Yeah,
something called a meme coin? How credible?
yeah. Sorry, how credible?
How credible is something
Majority.
is called meme coin? Because memes, we know what memes are, right? It's those
Yeah,
funny things,
yeah.
right? So a meme
Internet
coin
memes. Yeah.
and a meme coin, is this something where you would put your savings?
Oh no, definitely not. The key word here is savings, and as I mentioned earlier, Bitcoin is digital gold. So where you want to put your savings as a good store of value? You tend to put it in gold or Bitcoin, something that's less volatile. You don't want to put it in a meme coin that will suddenly go uh 99% down, 100% down, and then you lose all your savings wiped out
Yes.
just because some guy who is the CEO of Tesla, for example, CEO of X, suddenly just tweeted, "Oh, Doge to the moon,"
Yes, that's what I
Yeah,
was mentioned when I
ridiculous.
mentioned being volatile. That a tweet can make the price go up and down. Just a tweet. Right? Okay. What's the difference between an altcoin and a meme coin? Is there a difference?
There's actually a difference. But personally, I think that Bitcoin is the only money that matters because the properties are like hardness, decentralization, portability, fungibility. There's so many more properties. Altcoins basically are like, I'll give the definition. Altcoins are basically like the alternative to Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
And like I mentioned earlier, they're like a more tokenized version of companies like Nvidia, Tesla, that sort of things. A lot of them are worthless, especially the meme coins, because like I mentioned, like you look at internet memes, for the fun shits and giggles. You
Right.
don't want to, store your life's
Saving.
value, your life's worth on a stupid meme about dogs or dogs we've had, stuff like that, Yeah.
So you were mentioning Satoshi Nakamoto. So that's a very interesting topic. Uh, who-
Yes.
for those who did not understand or do not know, so Satoshi Nakamoto is the name of the person that came up with the Bitcoin paper some years ago, and basically it's a fake name because no one knows who Satoshi Nakamoto is. If it's one person, more than one person, who do you think, Jemson, is or was Satoshi Nakamoto, and why was he or them afraid off, and the reason why they stayed anonymous. Why were they avoiding with that?
I cannot give you a definite answer, unfortunately, for this question, because Satoshi's identity until now is still a mystery.
Your guess. We want to hear your guess.
Sure, but I can confidently say who is not Satoshi.
Okay, we can start there. Who
So
is not Satoshi? Not you,
definitely not me,
not
not
Elon
you,
Musk.
not Craig, not Elon Musk, not Trump. It's not Craig Wright, Adam Back, Hal Finney. No, none of these people.
Mm-hmm.
And to answer the other question, why is he afraid? That's why he becomes anonymous. It's like he's afraid, you know. He, as in, quote unquote, you don't know who's the true identity. He's afraid that his creation will be so popular, so widely adopted. He actually kind of predicted this in his white paper, the Bitcoin white paper, that eventually the government will hunt him down and then arrest him, like Ross Ulbricht, same guy that I mentioned again, who was recently pardoned by President Trump.
So he or
Yeah.
them were afraid of persecution.
Yes.
Okay, but that was some time ago, right? Question is, nowadays, probably if I was Satoshi Nakamoto, I would feel more comfortable to come up because Bitcoin is being adopted by and supported by presidents, etc. And I could say, hey, remember those millions of Bitcoins that there was stored in a wallet belonging to me? I can then now also activate them and have a good life. Isn't it the right moment for Satoshi Nakamoto to come up and step forward?
From what you mentioned earlier, I don't think it's the right moment.
Not yet. Why?
Because if he were to review himself, the state of the mainstream media and everything, like where, let's say, there are, just take for instance, like they're the Euro Million winners or the jackpot winners. Sometimes the winners will be publicly known via mainstream media, and then it's like it gives thieves, robbers, criminals, all sorts of opportunities to go hunt down these people and steal their wealth. That's number one. Number two, if he's publicly made known now, governments will also hunt him down.
Why?
They'll
Why?
still hunt him down. No.
But his work is already done. The adoption already happened. It's irrelevant if Satoshi Nakamoto steps forward or not. Bitcoin will continue to be Bitcoin and crypto will continue to be crypto. Why would he be persecuted? Everything happened without
Because
him.
it's because it's because of the same reason why Ross Ulbricht was in prison in the first place. To give you a bit of like a clarification, he wasn't arrested because he was dealing with illicit activities like drugs or weapons or guns smuggling. No, it's because that the platform that he came up with, which is the Silk Road, is beyond the purview of government surveillance, of government control. Just to give you some idea, do you know that if Ross Ulbricht got the same sentence, do you know that Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook, he's supposed to get an even heavier sentence? You want to know why? It's because there are way more dealings in drugs, in weapons, in any other illicit activities on Facebook itself, as compared to on a one-man operation website in which nobody publicly knows because it's all in the dark web, and they're handling the trades and the volumes much more than Silk Road. So I believe,
Okay.
uh, I believe that Mark Zuckerberg should be in prison right now, and Ross Ulbricht definitely is free, should be free, should have remained free.
Maybe the difference, Jemson, is that once someone points out that those deals are happening on Facebook Marketplace, etc., Zuckerberg just says, "Oh, we will apply moderation. We will filter that content." So he just responds saying that he's going to do some action, and then the media goes away. right? While on Silk Road, it's just I've created this platform, I don't control them, people use for whatever they want to do, so I don't care. Maybe that's the difference, right? Why Zuckerberg is not being pursued for that.
Maybe,
Maybe.
perhaps.
Maybe.
But the thing is, but the point I wanted to make is that Facebook is centralized. You can't do whatever the hell you like on Facebook, you know. Because they, like you mentioned, they have moderation, they have mods, they have rules. You can't just do whatever you like. You can't just post whatever you like. But on Silk Road, you can.
It's not moderated.
But the thing is, because it's not, you can do almost whatever you want. Because I wouldn't say it's not moderated. Silk Road has mods, yes, admins. But the thing is, you know, they believe in the core guiding principles of libertarianism, in which you're free to do whatever you want until you know you know a certain limit, which is whatever actions that you do hurts someone,
Okay.
like directly. Here's the word directly, not indirectly, like Silk Road. Because in Ross Ulbricht's case, he didn't hurt anyone directly, so that's why there's a difference. Like I mentioned earlier, he wasn't directly dealing the drug trade. He wasn't directly dealing with arms. So yeah.
Thanks for the definition. Thanks for the definition. So if you had to make a guess who Satoshi Nakamoto is or was, I still haven't heard the name. Because there are some clues, right? The way the paper is written in a certain type of language, using certain words. Maybe that's all fake and all on purpose to deviate the attention. The guy may be intelligent enough to plant those artifacts to make look like he is British and he's not. But can you tell us a little bit of that conspiracy and that mystery? Because I guess some people find it very interesting, myself included. So if I can hear from the specialist.
Sure. I was about to go more into the detail of of those clues that you found. I also actually found them independently myself. So there are some clues that he may be British, or if he's not British, he might he or you know a group of people might come or like originate or come from northwestern Europe. What do I mean by northwestern Europe? The Netherlands, where their English is also quite good. Uh-huh. You know that area.
Mm-hmm.
Because some of the clues that you mentioned, like oh, it's written in a certain language in which you know Brits or British educated people would write. Because Singapore used to be a British colony, and then we, in our education with regards to English, you know, we follow the British system of government, we follow the British system of education, business, law, like legal aspects, etc., etc. So I'm kind of familiar with those terms, like you know, spelling the word color with a U, you know, stuff like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
I sort of could understand that chain of thought, and then like time zone as well is another clue.
Time zone, sorry, time zone is because of the time that he posted things out there.
Yes, on
Okay.
the original forums.
Okay. Which could also be faked, right? We could just be posting during the night. Mm-hmm.
Or I think the last hint would be that you know he used certain terms in which is very unique and specific to that country. Like for example, lad or mate sounds very English centric, I'd
Okay.
say.
Okay.
So yeah,
Well, considering all that, Jemson, your guess
mhm.
is
Considering all that, my guess still remains the same. That Satoshi, the origins of Satoshi is probably Northwestern European. If it's not British, it probably must be Northwestern European.
okay.
That's the only hint I could give. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Satoshi, if you are hearing this, leave in the comments. Please confirm in the comments if if Jemson is correct or not. We spoke a little bit about the past now with Satoshi and the progression of Bitcoin. What about the future, Jemson? What are the biggest obstacles for Bitcoin adoption right now? So for some people, Bitcoin is like watching a movie, right? It's something that is happening very far away out there, prices up, down, but on my personal life, it doesn't affect me much. Not me exactly, but people that are far away. So what are the challenges for Bitcoin to become adopted more seriously for everyone?
So let me try to answer your first question. So the lack of quality education on Bitcoin, especially in developed nations, like the EU nations, the US, Australia, New Zealand, the Anzac nations, I call it. There's a lack of quality education on Bitcoin. That's the biggest obstacle to the adoption. And the other thing is fake news, misinformation spread by elites, the mainstream media. Misinformation could easily be spread, by people, especially with how the media is, especially the mainstream media is being set up right now. And then it's like fake news, misinformation can easily be spread so fast. And then like whenever there's a correction, the correction couldn't spread as fast, and already like as they say, the damage is done. So that's one of the biggest obstacles to Bitcoin adoption so far. Uh, Whereas for the future, part of the efforts I'm, contributing at the moment to contribute to the future of Bitcoin is me, investing my time, my efforts, and everything. Not to invest in more Bitcoin. I mean, I would like to do that, of course, but what's even more important is I invest my time and effort to, educate people about Bitcoin. And that's the reason why I created my podcast, Orange Pill Uncensored, in the first place. So, yeah.
Link in the comments for people that want to be more educated. The first step is going down to the comments and open Jemson's podcast and subscribe. I guess governments will have an important play in Bitcoin's future, right? In helping also the adoption with the regulation, or I don't know, going against also it's a possibility. Which roles do you see that governments need to have or are having? So some countries are very prone to crypto, others ban things. So how do you view this?
It depends on the country, but generally, I would say it's a mix of the three. I could give you a few relevant examples. The EU, where the region where we are living in right now, and the US.
Mm-hmm. What's the difference, Jameson, between those two regions when it comes to Bitcoin adoption?
For these two relevant regions, for the EU, the elites in Brussels, they recently implemented MiCA. It's a markets in crypto assets.
Mm-hmm. It's affecting the stable coins.
It affects Portugal. It also affects the other 27, 28 EU nations. Just to give you a bit of a background, in the original draft, I actually did read a little bit about the original draft and then the recent MiCA regulations. In the original draft, that was just in discussion. It was only a few years ago, by the way. This was just in 2022 when they were still discussing about the draft. The language, the legal jargon, the terms they used, they were so harsh, There was even this suggestion to ban Bitcoin mining and then ban Bitcoin hardware wallets. So for those of you who do not know what's hardware wallets, it's like a special type of digital device. It's not physically like a wallet to store our our cash, but it's like a hardware device to privately store Bitcoin. It was that harsh that they're gonna ban these two things in the original draft. But then, thanks to the lobbying efforts by the European Bitcoin community,
Mm-hmm.
the lawmakers, they were forced to remove a lot of these harsh terms. And then now what we are seeing is actually a watered down version of MiCA.
Okay. Which is what are the main requirements that MiCA is implementing? Do you know? Are you able to mention them?
MiCA tried to attempts to divide crypto into three different categories. One of them is utility coins, one of them is commodity coins, and then the last one is something like stable coins.
Mm-hmm.
They term it differently, but from my understanding, like they try to divide it between stable coins, commodity coins, and the utility coins. Bitcoin fits in commodity coins that under that category.
Mhm. And then for each of those categories, the UE is requiring certain proofs and requirements for those coins to be able to be traded or exist in European region. Am I correct?
Yes.
Why is that a problem? Sounds like a good thing, right?
No, I wouldn't say that's a problem, but I understand that from a regulator's point of view that consumer financial protection is really, really important. But the thing is, like, if you put too much regulation, too much burdens, even on the normal retail investors, that's the reason why you have reasons like it makes it too expensive and too cumbersome to adopt Bitcoin, especially in the developed regions, developed world. There's so many regulations, as compared to my home country in Singapore, for example. To buy a Bitcoin, I could just open a like Singapore's version of Coinbase. We call it Coin Hako. We just open an account in Coin Hako, and then just there are some limits like buy or sell limits, but if you just follow within that simple guidelines that they set, and then you're done. No taxes, yeah, zero capital taxes, nothing else. The
Mm,
government won't bother
yeah.
you. But in the EU, it's like, oh, under the guise of consumer protection, you got so many rules. Some of them doesn't make sense. Some of them make sense, and then nobody bothers to check those rules because it's like what several hundred pages of documents that's needlessly not long and filled with legal jargon. Not even Portuguese lawyers or the judges when they read this, like they will even understand word for word what is actually written in there. So it's like that's one of the problems. That's why I say it's a bit of a problem. But the good thing that comes out of it is any regulation, at least something is defined. At least there is a bit of clarity. Yeah, which helps to settle the investor anxiety and anxiousness. Like, oh, finally the EU is leading head first,
Mhm.
with regards to crypto regulation, Bitcoin regulation.
What is the difference then for the US?
I would say the difference between the EU and the US is that, under the previous administration, which was the Biden administration, it was almost the same as the EU. Very, very harsh anti Bitcoin policies. They have very, very harsh very, very harsh, very anti Bitcoin policies just 1 or 2 years ago when Biden was still around. Even the former SEC chairman Gary Gensler, he delayed the approval of the Bitcoin spot ETF. It's like he's really, really reluctant because of he's just following orders from Biden. But now with the second Trump administration, he has suddenly changed direction. The US has suddenly changed direction to become more Bitcoin friendly, more crypto friendly.
Hmm. Less regulation?
So yes, less regulation, less control. Like there's even talk of no CBDCs. You'll be one of the few countries in the world that personal freedom and financial freedom are respected. Not like China, not like the EU, which is developing its own version of CBDCs. CBDCs basically is a short form for central bank digital currencies.
And what about the rest of the world? What's happening on the rest of the world? Is it
Right.
like more a US approach right now? It's a gray zone, dead man's land?
I believe it's like still a regulatory minefield, a regulatory no man's land for the rest of the world. Again, I could give you a few examples. China is one of them, like I
Hmm?
mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
So in China, CBDCs are legal because the Chinese government is so keen on preserving their own authoritarian power that they even want to control people's money, financial transactions. That's why they are so open to the idea of central bank digital currencies. But when it comes to Bitcoin, they don't allow mining. They do protect the rights of holders of Bitcoin. So if you hold it previously and currently, if you're living in China, your rights are protected. You do have property rights and all that, but you can't openly trade it. You can't openly mine it, or you can't openly declare, hey, look at me, Xi Jinping. I have Bitcoin, you definitely be in trouble. The reason why I say this is because ethnically I'm Chinese, and I actually have sources. I actually understand the sources that comes directly out of the mainland, out of Taiwan, out of Hong Kong and Macau, because of that language, because of the cultural and linguistic
Mm-hmm.
ability that I had. And then another region that's a bit of a minefield is Russia. Because of the war that they have, that's why they were forced to adopt crypto to be more friendly to Bitcoin crypto to be able to skirt around the sanctions. But then at the same time, I also hear something about in certain regions in Russia, like Siberia, the Russian Far East, that areas, you can't mine Bitcoin for 10 years. And I was like, why? And then when I read further about the reasons, like, because that regions, even though it's apparently it's oil rich, those regions, they face an energy shortage. If let's say all the Bitcoin miners just fire up and take up the energy, that's why I was a bit puzzled. So Bitcoin is technically like in China, Bitcoin is also allowed in Russia. You have same exact property rights, but mining, you can't mine in certain regions, in
Yeah.
Russia.
There's no energy for that.
There's a the government will still tax you. I don't know what's the percentage. And then with the war going on, certain banks, I'm talking about Russian banks, they don't want to distance themselves away from crypto because they don't want to get sanctioned further, you see. So yeah, those stuff of
Yep.
things.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the game, Jemson. Um,
Yep, sure.
how do you think how does Trump's election will help Bitcoin?
With the recent election of Donald Trump,
Yep.
he has basically made lots of promises. At first, I thought, like any other politician, he's gonna renege. Sorry, it's a fancy English term for uh, like not follow through or to go against the campaign promises. But turns out he did what was promised. Actually,
Which was?
one of
Can you,
the most important, yeah. So one of them, which is the pardoning of Ross Ulbricht, because he did promise to his supporters as well as Bitcoiners like me, and
how does that impact Bitcoin, Jemson? So that's is like more of a principle pardon because it's Silk Road, not Bitcoin. How does that really impact Bitcoin?
in principle, it sort of affects Bitcoin because Bitcoin is still tied relatively to individual rights, civil rights. That's why we self custody Bitcoin. That's why me and other Bitcoiners, we are so against central bank digital currencies.
Mm-hmm.
That's why with this release, Bitcoiners finally have this psychological impact that finally the government is not weighing down on us anymore.
Okay.
Finally, the US government is on our side. They are supportive. It doesn't really affect the price at the
All right.
moment, but eventually, with more and more, the momentum takes time to build. So with more
Right.
and more pro crypto, pro Bitcoin policies, going forward, with this turning point, prices would follow.
Mm-hmm.
Adoption should follow. Everything else should follow.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But for now, was just a pardon that was the most impactful Trump
Mm,
new changes. Was just that, in your opinion?
Not just that, but he also signed an executive order which championed individual rights, like I mentioned, self custody of Bitcoin. And in that same executive order, he specifically banned the development and the usage of CBDCs in the US.
Okay.
And then he also directed the government agencies and whatnot in the US to shut down whatever developments, whatever side projects they are doing that's also related to CBDCs, central bank digital currencies,
Mhm.
which I believe is a good thing. It really helps Bitcoin develop because now everyone won't be distracted by central bank digital currency. Will the government harass us or hunt us down because we self custody our Bitcoin.
Makes sense. Makes sense. What are your concerns with Bitcoin privacy? Because everything is public, although some people believe that, as you were mentioning before, that you can use crypto and Bitcoin to do illicit things. The fact that everything is registered on the ledger, we could follow any move where the money goes in or out. Does that create privacy concerns for you?
No,
No?
no. And the reason why I say that is because, look, everything in life, there's always an advantage, a disadvantage, a pro and a con.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing goes with regards to privacy. There's a reason why I highly value privacy, especially when it comes to Bitcoin and financial privacy. Just to give you an example, we live in a country where there are always neighbors or friends around, right? Unless you're telling me you live in those gated communities, where you live by yourself. So if you actually live with neighbors, with friends,
Mm-hmm.
certainly you don't allow your neighbors or friends to know your sensitive information, your private personal information and data, like passwords,
No.
blood type and whatnot. Yeah, the same should be applied for financial and Bitcoin privacy. And see, here's the thing: as time progresses further, I feel that sometimes financial privacy is slowly starting to erode unless we do something. Because one of the side effects of the Bitcoin spot ETFs is that governments and the financial institutions now want your Bitcoin because there is a shortage of Bitcoin as we speak at the moment, because everyone wants one, including retail investors like me. And then when they want your Bitcoin, they want to not only do they just want your Bitcoin, they want to tie to bundle the KYC data to your Bitcoin, which I think is it's really unconstitutional. In most countries, I believe, including here in Portugal as well. Why do you want so much of my data? Haven't you, for Portugal's case, haven't you learned from the Estado Novo era? Like, don't you feel like a violation of your privacy?
Well, first of all, KYC, I believe it's know your client, right? So it's the kind of
Know your customer.
customer. So it's when you require people to use platforms before they need to present their documentation, IDs, etc., just to verify they are not part of criminal databases, etc. So that in theory is a good thing, right? To filter criminals that may use the platforms to do illicit stuff.
Yes, I agree. But the thing is, you're giving, KYC and all that is like giving an opportunity, for malicious actors, hostile actors, to abuse it, if they have an opportunity to abuse.
You mean the companies that collect that data?
Yeah, like the financial institutions or
Mm-hmm.
banks or whatever, because
Mm-hmm.
there always be this one employee disgruntled or whatever suddenly leak all of the data.
Right, we know that happens.
Yeah, and it's fucking scary because now we are living in a digital age. Everything is digital. Once that happens, that's it. Your privacy is gone.
That's a valid concern, right?
Yes.
Because in other platforms, like for example, you can open a Gmail, you don't need to provide much information, right? You can fake birth date, etc. You can register yourself in Board Game Arena, which we are using right now. By the way, it's the time to play. You know what I'm saying? And you don't need to provide any documents, etc. But in order for you to trade in centralized platforms, KYC demands are very high. It's not just for you to register, right? Every time you do a transaction, if the transaction has certain volumes, KYC will trigger. They will want to know origins of the funds, where the funds going, etc. So I understand what you're saying. There's some concerns there on privacy. I believe you're not sponsored because I don't remember seeing anything. But if you have to recommend like favorite tools or services to make using Bitcoin easier, what are your top three that you would like to share?
To answer your first question, no, I'm not sponsored.
Yet?
I try to have some, promotions or advertisements of certain products, like for example, coffee. Like the coffee powder, Brazilian coffee powder that some of my Bitcoiner friends imported from Brazil. I tried to promote that, but other than that, no other sponsors.
Okay.
But to answer your other question,
Crypto and Bitcoin related services, right?
yes, crypto and Bitcoin related books, podcasts, resources. So for podcasts, I'm gonna do the obvious shameless thing, which is to recommend my podcast.
Link in the comments if you haven't heard.
Yes, it's available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, by the way. So it's actually multi-platform. And don't worry, in case you are afraid, oh, is it gonna be beginner friendly? Yes, it's beginner friendly. That's why I started this podcast in the first place. Is to actually, introduce beginners, to teach people and to help them understand, educate them about money and finance, and then slowly, guide them towards Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
For books, I'm personally reading the Bitcoin Standard, but it's very technical. It's very mostly it's history based. But if it's for the average beginner, someone who's beginning to learn Bitcoin, I recommend another book, which is Broken Money by Lynn Alden. So he talks about money, and then he also talks about Bitcoin. That's simple, and I believe it's more beginner friendly enough to understand, for most people to understand.
It's a woman, right?
Yeah.
Lynn Alden.
Lynn Alden, yeah, she's a woman.
She's an influencer in this area. Yeah.
Yes, as well.
Tools. So what should I download for my phone? Where should I open my account? What do you recommend?
For my favorite exchange, if let's say anyone who's beginning to Bitcoin, and if you want a Bitcoin only exchange, I would recommend Strike. Like to
Stripe.
strike someone. Yeah,
Oh,
that's the name.
Strike, not
Strike.
Stripe.
Strike. I could provide the links
What's that?
in
What's
the
Strike?
comments as well.
It's an exchange?
Strike is basically a Bitcoin only exchange that's now available in the EU countries. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, it's a Bitcoin only exchange.
That's what you use as well. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes. To buy my Bitcoin, to sell my Bitcoin.
You
Yeah.
withdraw. Does it work well with European banks to withdraw?
Withdrawals,
If you want to withdraw,
yes, it does. Yes. But to make things even more simple, like what I will do is, I'll upload I will actually send funds from my bank to Revolut to Strike. But if you want a direct bank to Strike, withdrawal or deposits, you can do that, but it's gonna take the standard 2 or 3 usual business days.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah.
Does Revolut is a good option if you want to withdraw from exchanges, especially if you live in Portugal?
Yeah. Revolut is also good, but the thing I would like to caution about Revolut is that they have higher fees.
Okay.
So yeah, if you want to buy Bitcoin directly from Revolut, I wouldn't recommend it.
It's too expensive. Okay.
I mean, for the fees,
For the fees, yes.
the prices are also a bit separately. The prices are also like quoted, I think, much more expensive as well. So yeah, it's not really a good deal compared to Strike.
Thanks for the
Yeah.
recommendations. We are very close to the end of the game. I will trigger the end game there. But still, I would like to ask you some questions. So, for example, in terms of the Lightning Network, what do you think about the role of Lightning Network in Bitcoin's future?
First of all, Lightning is developed, to address the concerns for, altcoins. Because some of the altcoins, when I actually saw their use cases, when I read through some of their white papers, I was like, so your main use case of this particular altcoin, XYZ coin, for example, is because transaction fees within Bitcoin, like to send a transaction from you to another person, is high.
Takes too much time.
Takes too much time. Slow. Okay, but can't we do the same with Lightning? You know what I mean? So I could see a future where more developers, hopefully with me being involved in their development team, especially with regards to the software testing side. Fingers crossed. I really wanted to work on such a project in Bitcoin that eventually they'll be able to eliminate or replace the need for most altcoins with such a use case like, oh, Bitcoin transactions are so expensive. It takes too long, too slow, the transactions takes too long to send a Bitcoin to a person. Because that's the reason why Lightning Network is to develop. Because when you make the payment on a Lightning Network, it's as fast as Lightning. I could even to give you a few examples. When I was in the conference in Amsterdam, the Bitcoin Amsterdam conference, I paid for my food and drink sometimes with Bitcoin when I'm inside the venue where they sell food and drinks, because it was really that fast. And uh, for Amsterdam, majority of the city, they don't accept cash. And that's the feeling I got. So I just take out my Lightning wallet and just pay for food and drinks. And then for another real life example is I actually pay my rent. Yes, monthly rent with Lightning Network as well. So
Hmm.
that's the reason why the experience. No, it's true. My landlord, he accepts Bitcoin and he's a
Oh,
Bitcoiner as well.
okay. So that's
Freaking
a
lucky.
valid use. Finally, after 1 hour of podcast, we heard a valid case of use of Bitcoin to pay the rent. You can pay rent in Lisbon with Bitcoin. Cool. Okay.
Yeah, but you need to know, your landlord and whether or not he's a Bitcoiner and a friend, like mine.
Right. Okay. Okay. So Johnson, some people have clicked this video. They were searching for Bitcoin. Somehow they found this video and they were searching because they want to start their own journey on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
If you could leave today one piece of advice for people that are new on Bitcoin, what would it be?
Okay. That piece of advice would be understand about money. After you do that, study Bitcoin.
Understand about money and then Bitcoin. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Understand the problem, which is money, and then study the solution, which is Bitcoin.
Money is the problem, Bitcoin is the solution.
Yes.
How can then the listeners start their own orange pill journey after that?
There's this trademark phrase which I'm gonna quote. It's called question everything. So yes, question everything, including what you know about traditional finance, like stocks, bonds, and stuff like that. Try to understand more about economics. Yeah, that's the starting journey in which I did as well years back.
You're suggesting following the steps you also took. So if it worked for you, probably it will work for other people as well. Jemson, you have your last play before we see the final score. So let's just watch you finish the game by picking those blue tiles, which you can fit one there. Lots of negatives for you and me.
Ooh.
So let's see the final
Yep.
score now. Okay. So I was able to complete one row and I have all the blues, which will give me some extra points. Let's see the final score. Let's go. Okay, there's extra points for the row, for the column, 2 columns there. And yeah, you have a row. You got all the reds. Wow, you got all the reds. And there's the points. 69-35, Jemson. Yeah. This would deserve a rematch now that you are more experienced in Azul. But if I was going to play something related with Bitcoin, probably I would have a very low score as well. Maybe one day we can have this conversation
Maybe.
again, but then talk about singing and acting, which I believe are things that you also like to do. I heard that somehow, somewhere, singing and acting. Okay. Who knows? Who
Yes,
knows?
yes, I
One day,
do.
who knows? Before we go, Jemson, I always ask everyone that is here on the show if they can recommend me one person that has somehow an interesting story that I should invite to this show. Who do you think could be an interesting guest for this show?
I have a good friend of mine. His name is Alex. He has recently released a book called Thank You, President Corona. A very
Corona?
interesting title. Thank you, President, or thank you, Mr. Corona, or thank you, President Corona.
It's about the coronavirus.
It's a very interesting. Yes, it's about all the things, all the events
Oh,
that happened during the Corona period.
challenge accepted, Jemson. Thank you very much for being in the show. I truly believe that this conversation will help to other people to follow your content, to get to know your work as well, on the orange pill side of things. And who knows, also one day find you and follow you anywhere dealing with Bitcoin, crypto, and adopting that lifestyle that you shared with us today. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you.